Remember to bring the originals of all the documents and certificates at the time of the interview. There are many misconceptions about the Commission's interviews. Stories can be heard about harassing the candidates, misleading questions, and attempting to make the candidates nervous, etc. The interview, however, is simply a personality test designed to test a candidate's mental alertness, balance of judgment, variety and depth of interest, and qualities of leadership. The interview is thus designed to probe the candidate's areas of light rather than the areas of darkness. The procedure of the interview is so laid down as to protect the candidate from any bias or prejudice as far as possible. The interview board consists of members with diverse interests and from different parts of the country. There are scientists, diplomats, professors, administrators, in fact, from practically every field one can think of. Before the actual interview, the chairman of the interview board again highlights the aims and objects of the interview and how it should be conducted.
Now, we have circulated a note on the conduct of this personality test, some of which, of course, is obvious. But what we have tried to do is to summarize our experience over the years, because we have been doing this in the Commission year after year. You will see that it is not a test of knowledge. What we have to do is to gauge a candidate's mental alertness, his clarity of expression, his power of assimilation, and his judgment. It is difficult, I know, in a span of half an hour. And the best way of doing it, I would suggest, is to make the questions as short as possible and let the answers be long so that we can listen to what he has to say. And although it's not a test of knowledge, some amount of questioning will be necessary, I think, to find out whether his academic knowledge is patchy and outdated or whether it is thorough and up to date. That amount of questioning on his subject will be necessary. And we have to be extra careful regarding candidates from rural areas. They may have sterling qualities which we have to draw out because they have not been exposed to many things like their urban colleagues. And also, if the question can be answered by a simple yes or no, it will not help us at all. And there should be no leading questions and no multiple questions. And beyond that, the subjects to be covered will I leave to you. You can cover anything you like. See whether the man or the woman is quick on the uptake. And also we'll try to find out whether he can fit into an organization. That will be necessary in government.
Here is a complete interview of one of the successful candidates for the civil services.
Now, Mr. Javed Usmani.
Yes, sir.
You have a rather surprising record, excellent from intermediate onwards.
Thank you, sir.
And, no, all around, sorry, high school, intermediate, BSc. But then after doing physics, chemistry and mathematics, he branched off to management.
Yes, sir.
He didn't think of continuing in physics or chemistry or mathematics, one of the sciences.
I thought so, but at that point in time I thought that MBA would be better.
I see.
Because after BSc,
yes,
I thought of two alternatives insofar as job is concerned. The IAS and the private sector management. And since my age was not enough to make me eligible for the IAS, I had to wait for 3 years anyway at that time. So I thought that I'll go through both the alternatives, that is do my MBA, work in the private sector, and then appear at the IAS.
Now you did join the private sector.
I did think, sir, of doing research in physics for some time, but after that I dropped that idea, and then I had two alternatives in front of me, either appearing for the IAS examination or going in for a management career in the private sector. Since I could not have been eligible in terms of age for appearing at the examination for 3 more years, I thought I might still do MBA, see what the private sector is like, and later appear at the IAS.
I see. Now you have worked in Madura courts
Yes,
for
sir.
some time as management trainee. Now they must have paid you more than they are likely to get in government for several years now.
Well, that's true, sir.
Now you tell us briefly what attracted you to government service. Was it status or security or the prospect of wielding authority?
Well, sir, I preferred the job that I would be doing in the IAS, if I'm selected, to the job that I was doing in Madura courts for two reasons primarily. Number one, I personally feel that the IAS offers a lot of variety. That is, your job keeps on changing in a substantial manner from time to time. While in the private sector, I was in the marketing division of Madura courts, and I would have been a marketing man all my life, which might have got a little boring towards the end.
I see.
And the second and more important reason is that I feel that this job would give me more satisfaction in terms of a sense of achievement than a job in the private sector. Although it's an exciting job there also, but this is more challenging and more satisfying, I think.
Now, Mr. Usmani, in our country we have a mixed economy.
Yes, sir.
Now, would you tell us what you understand by mixed economy?
So, mixed economy is one in which, as a matter of policy, both the public and the private sector are allowed to exist side by side, complementing each other.
Yes. And what do you understand by Gandhian economics?
So, this is a term which has been in use of late quite a lot, but not very well understood, as I think. So, I also don't know very much about it, but I can make a guess. I personally feel that Gandhian economics would mean not industrializing on a very large scale, decentralization, small scale industry, lot of emphasis on agriculture and rural industries.
Now, there's just one more question I'd like to ask you before I hand you over to a colleague of mine. You are from UP.
Yes, sir.
Now, do you think UP is too large a state to be administered properly, or should be broken up into 2 or 3 states?
So I can't say offhand. UP is a very big state, population-wise as well as area-wise. It wouldn't be my idea actually. I've been reading about it, and a lot of people have been saying that UP should be broken up and it will be administratively much better if UP is broken up into smaller areas. But I don't really have any particular thought of mine on this subject, sir.
That's all right.
When did you do your management training?
Sir, I was in the 74, 76
What is the duration?
2 years, sir.
I see. And then you were a management training Madura course. How long?
I was in Madura course for 10.5 months, sir.
I see. Now, with your background, you should be able to tell us the qualities which go to make a successful executive or a successful administrator. Business Magazine very humorously describes a successful executive as one who can delegate all the responsibility, shift all the blame, and appropriate all the credit. But I don't think you agree. I don't agree either. But you tell us from a past experience.
A successful executive or a successful administrator should possess basically 2 qualities. Number one, he should be absolutely thorough about the job that he is doing. That is technical expertise. In whatever area he is, he should know more than his subordinates about the job that he's supposed to get done out of them. And secondly, I think he should be very good in human relations. That is, in establishing a good working relationship with his subordinates and his superiors and his peers. These 2 qualities, I think, are the essential qualities of a successful executive.
What about leadership?
Leadership, I think, is a specific quality which comes in that human relations aspect. That is a general, there's a general quality which contains a lot of specific factors like leadership, motivation of subordinates, good relations within the office, no acrimony between peers. So all these things, I think, should be covered by the general factor, general quality of human relations, good human relations.
Because a district administrator has got to lead the team. He's got to be a good leader.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Usmani, I find that you have offered 2 papers on European history.
Yes, sir, the lower and the higher.
I see. I would just like to put a question or 2 on these areas that you have studied. What would have been the consequences of a decision to open the second front not on Normandy beach but in Southeast Europe, in the Balkan area somewhere there?
If
during the Second World War, you see.
If the second front had been opened in the south of Europe, that is in the Balkans, then the Americans and the British armies would have been able to come across all these countries.
Mr. Usmani, I'll take you up from one of the answers you gave to my colleague.
Yes, ma'am.
You said international